Welcome to Women in Leadership Talk, where you'll hear from successful women who are empowering other women with their stories of adversity, resiliency, and success. And here is your host, Vicki Bradley, founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. How's everyone's day going? Hopefully it is fantastic. I am fortunate enough to have Angela Lewis with us today, and she said she's having a great day. So Angela, welcome.
Thank you, Vicki. Excited to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. And I'm living in Toronto right now. The sun is shining, but it's actually cold. I know. We had a beautiful weekend, and I don't know what happened overnight. It just got a little bit chilly, but that's okay. We know summer, spring, something's coming around the corner.
Right around the corner.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here, Angela. And I want to, thank our audience for being here. We know they have a choice as to what podcast they listen to. So thank you for showing up again today to have a listen to another amazing woman we have on the show. So I'm going to give you a little feedback on Angela so you know why she's here. And we're going to jump right in and have a great conversation today. So Angela is a former professional basketball player. She's an author and the head of operations for Speaker Hub. She has a background deeply rooted in sports, and she brings unique insights from her experience as a high-level athlete and championship-winning coach to her work in leadership and team collaboration. She has an extensive background to empower individuals and organizations, drawing on the lessons from the court to foster teamwork, resilience, and effective communication. This woman has a beautiful resume. So I'm gonna turn it over to Angela and let her share with us more about why she does what she does and how lessons on the court have enabled you to navigate the world you live in today.
Vicki, thank you so much for inviting me here. I think the core of who I am is the 12-year-old that stood 6'1" tall and didn't really feel like I fit in places. And so I have a heart for making sure that people feel connected and fit in. And so basketball became that place for me. But wherever I've worked and the work that I've done, it's always been about connecting people authentically in a way where they feel like they're seen, they're valued, and they're heard. So that's really important. So whether it's at Speaker Hub with our team and the meetings that I have with our team, the global team from all over, making sure that they feel valued and seen, or the work on the court with coaching teams, that's always been at the core because I know what it feels like to not quite fit in.
Yeah. Wow. And that speaks from the heart, right? Like, when you take your own experiences and then you can look at the world and say, how can I have an impact? That's what you're doing. So talk to us a bit about those lessons on, the court and how that is helping you navigate the complexities of today's world.
There are three big lessons that I learned from sport. The first one is, if you stay with something long enough, you can get pretty good. And so I started playing basketball, but I was not good. I'm 6'1", so people thought that I was better than I actually was. I was a novice and new to the game. But if you can stay long enough with something, whether it be marketing, whether it be operations, even sales, you will get better. But you have to give yourself time to get better and make it through those stages when you're in a valley and you're not sure how to come out. But you have to keep working. The other thing I learned from sport is you need a team. I think sometimes in our culture, we can have such a individualistic mindset where I can do everything, but you can't. You need other people because it's arrogant to believe you're great at everything, and you're just not. And I had to learn that the hard way, which we can get into. So you actually need other people. And so being a part of a team is critical. And then the last thing is coaches. We need people who are steps ahead of us to show us how to maneuver some of those roadblocks that we're undoubtedly going to get, that are undoubtedly going to come within our path. So those are things from sport. The need for teams, the need for coaches, all that makes a big difference, and patience to give yourself a chance to get better.
Yeah. Love that. Well, and when you're talking about coaches, I mean, often we get in our own way, right? And those coaches are there to help you get out of your own way so that you can rise to your excellence. And when I say that, because some people might say, yeah, but she's a professional athlete and she's done this and done that. Yes, that's true, but you still have some of the same fears, right? We all have a little bit of that imposter syndrome or fear in there saying, oh, can I really do this? And your coach helps you work around that and make that your friend, not your saboteur.
Yes, 100%. I was nervous before every game. And even when I have big projects, I get nervous. Nervousness is just a part of the process. But when you put in the work and the game starts, like you have the confidence that you can do it, even though you know that things may go wrong, which they often do because such is life. But you know that you can bounce back from whatever goes wrong when you've put in the work.
Wow. I love that you said that because that's a theme that's been coming up a lot lately with some of my clients, even who talk about, oh, I can't leave this organization because, what if I can't do? And, what you just said, like that resonates a lot with me because it's like your skills are not locked to that. Well, let's take professional basketball, right? You can't play professional basketball for the rest of your life. It's just not reality, right? But what are the skills? What are the competency and the confidence that you learned through that is now helping you navigate where you are today?
That's a really good point. I think sometimes we're afraid to make changes. We're afraid to make changes. And sometimes life forces us to make change. Other times we do it voluntarily. But either way, the skills that you learned, for me, communication is one of them. You're forced to talk in sport. You have to have conversations about what's working, what's not working. The other thing from sport that is really valuable in the business world is actually watching game film, right? Reflecting on what the game plan was, which aspects of it worked, and how can we get better next time. Being an athlete, you're forced to be reflective. You're forced to be self-aware in ways that I think are incredibly valuable.
I love that. So maybe use an example, Angela, with how you see somebody could do that same reflection in the business world.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll give you an example. When with Speaker Hub, I have monthly meetings with our team, everyone on our team, and I had a conversation with Maria, who's our head designer. And Maria is always looking for feedback, and she's growing as a leader. And so I asked Maria to think back to when she first started, and she's hired 2 people now on the design team, and to really think about the level of growth that she's had and how she's had to communicate more directly, how she's had to delegate more. And so being able to see where you started and know that you've grown and gotten better, it's really important.
Yeah, I love that. And I find that we don't do enough of that, right? Because we get through something and then we're so busy going to the next thing that we forget about reflecting on what do we do well, what could we have done better, but celebrating those wins, right? Like that's so important, no matter what you're doing for a living. Even being a mom, like that's important, right? Like, yeah, maybe I raised my voice at my kid and this time I had a little more patience. Like those reflections are, what help us to navigate as we carry forward.
Yes. And to your point, Vicki, you learned something in the process.
Yeah.
And that's the big win of reflecting. Because if we don't learn, then we'll keep doing the same things over and over again. Never get the lesson.
Yeah. And if you keep doing that and hope you're going to get another result, we all know the definition of insanity, right? And so that is really important. And sometimes even when you have kids, like when you were just saying that, you made me reflect on my daughter when she was younger, because she was kind of like my mirror. She would put stuff up for me and I'd be like, oh, because she'd say, Mommy, you must be upset with me because you raised your voice or, whatever it may be. And I'd be like, did I didn't think I was raising my voice. Right. But in her mind, her perception, she gave me a quick check to where I could then step back and go, okay, am I frustrated, angry, annoyed about something that has nothing to do with her, but it had to do with maybe a different situation. So it's a great reflection.
Yes, 100%. I don't have children, but but I'm with you 100% on
Well,
having
it's the same
people
with
around who
employees,
can. Mm-hmm.
right? With your team, with employees, if you're lucky enough to have somebody who gives you that like you just did with Maria, right? What are the things that you're improving on, and you've hired two people, and what have you done well? Like all of that is a reflection, and so that is super important. So I know I want to talk a little bit about your journey. Like you've done a lot of work on letting go and you picked up, you sold everything, moved to Colombia, and that was, you talked about that being super transformational. So what prompted you to do this, and how has that changed the way that you live and engage in the world today?
When you talk about defining moments of life, Vicki, that will forever be one of the major defining moments and turning points. This was 2019, right before COVID occurred, and I was talking to a really good friend, and she asked me, "What is your ideal day?" She saw that I was struggling. Like I was just having a really hard time. I was running camps and clinics and I was doing a lot, trying to help parents, doing a whole lot, and was just burnt out. And she said, "What is your ideal day?" And I wrote down my ideal day, and I honestly just started crying. I read it off verbatim, and I'm like, "Oh, this is so far removed from the life that I want." But I had gotten caught up into just going, that my initial ideal day was something that was really stressful. Actually, it was a very stressful day. And so after I wiped my tears, I wrote down another ideal day, and it was peaceful and it was calm, and I was in the mountains, and I walked to the coffee shop, and I hopped online and talked about the projects I'd be working on with my team. And it was as clear as day. And that moment, I knew that things needed to change. So I started getting rid of things. Vicki, I didn't know that it was going to be Colombia. I didn't know, but I knew that what I was doing wasn't working. And I knew I wanted to get to that vision. So she shares with me on Airbnb Thailand. She's like, "Oh, you can get an apartment in Thailand for $400. I'm like, "Oh, that's amazing. But I don't want to go to Thailand. Like, that's kind of far away." Mm-hmm. But it wasn't even in my awareness. So fast forward, COVID happens, the world shuts down. And now we all have time to think. And I start really thinking about, okay, how do I get to this ideal day? So I start getting rid of things. I move in with friends and pay them for rent. I'm like, okay, if I just start getting rid of things, at least my life is lighter.
Yeah.
Well, I get a DM. This is July, August of 2020 from a guy who was a basketball coach in the St. Louis area that I knew. He was coaching a team in Manizales, Colombia. And he said they were looking for people to help support the team and train the players because they don't have a lot of training in that city for women basketball players. And so I talked to some friends who happened to be living in Medellin, Colombia, and I booked a flight in November of 2020. I go down to Medellin, Colombia, and go to this big basketball tournament where that team from Manizales was playing. 2 days later, I took a flight to Manizales. I didn't speak Spanish at all, Vicki. Like maybe hola, ¿cómo estás? That was it. And I did this basketball camp for four days with these young women and had an incredible time. I go back to Medellin, visit my friends, and I say, "Hey, I'm moving down here with y'all. Like, this is incredible." They were peaceful. Everything was peaceful for them. And I knew the vision that I had. So to bring this full circle, the vision that I had was the exact moment when I got to Colombia and I came out the tunnel and saw the mountains and felt the weather. It was surreal. So went back to the States. I gave myself 10 weeks to get rid of everything. And I got rid of cars, rental property, all my photos I digitized. We all have those crates of photos that we printed back in, before cell phones and cameras. Digitized all the photos, all my documents, had one crate, and then moved to Colombia. And It was unbelievable.
Wow. So I have to ask this. Did your friends think you were crazy or just brilliant for doing this?
Wonderful question. I only talked to people who had lived the life that I wanted to live. Okay. I didn't ask opinions because I knew they would ask questions that I would not have the answer to. So my friends who were already living in Colombia, I asked them how they did it. My friend who asked me about my ideal day, she's been living in Hawaii for years, had built yurts and lived off the grid. So she gave me the game plan. I got a digital mailbox. It was 2 weeks before I left where I started telling people who hadn't lived the experience. And of course, they thought I was crazy.
Good for you, Angela. I mean, that takes, first of all, incredible courage to do. But secondly, that awareness that the life I'm living is not the life I want to live. And hugely successful, doing incredible things. Like, not many people can say they played professional basketball, and so, but you needed to find what was for you.
Yeah.
And so how long did you stay in Colombia?
I stayed in Colombia 2.5 years, and I would come back when there were things going on to visit family and friends. Vicki, it was the most mindset shifting and heart space shifting experience. Because when you're immersed in another culture, you're constantly learning. You don't have a choice. Most people don't speak English. So every day is like an adventure to figure out how to go to the grocery store or restaurants. That was amazing. Then I got to meet people who live all over the world and travelers who were coming through. So you meet people with different stories and unique perspectives. And professionally, I launched a PR agency, and I helped leaders get booked on podcasts and booked over 400 interviews and worked with over 40 people. But that led to me working with Speaker Hub, because this PR agency was acquired, because we had all the operations, and now we get to do that globally. And my team is global. So had I not made that move, I didn't know what would happen when I made the move, but I knew I would figure it out. And I knew I had community, and the ripple effect has been beyond what I could have ever imagined.
Wow. The trust that you felt for yourself and for your community, your immediate community, like, that's incredible, and enabled you to go. And then now you've created this new life, which, like, well done. I love that.
Thank you. I will, two things that I did mention. The first is that I played basketball in Europe after college. So 20 years ago was my first time venturing off without cell phones, without WhatsApp and video chatting. So I knew that taking this leap wasn't as scary because I'd done it once. And so I knew if I could do it under those conditions, given technology today, I'd be fine. And I had community there as well.
That's amazing. Yeah. And so now that you're back, how has that helped you? I mean, I know from a career perspective, but even that mental calmness, that peace, like, how has that translated now that you're back into the busy, the noise, not as peaceful?
There are 3 things that I've done, Vicki. There are 3 things. One, I maintain the same lifestyle as much as possible. So I still work from home.
Nice.
And I fell in love with salsa dancing when I was in Colombia.
Yes. Lovely.
I'm in the DFW area. And as you know from your experience here, it's a great Latin community. So I found a Latin group of friends, and a group of friends that love Latin dance. They're not all from Latin America, but a group of friends that love Latin dance. So I still keep that part of my life. And when I got rid of everything, that moment I became unattached to the things. So I have an apartment full of things, but I'm not attached to them in the way that I was before. So my heart space has really, really shifted.
Nice. Well, and that openness, right? Like, so what I'm hearing from you is that enabled you to be much more open to possibilities.
Yes.
And, what is available beyond, let's say, the 4 walls that we create. Yeah. And that is freeing. I mean, I can think of 2 examples of myself in the last 30 years where, like, I sold my matrimonial home and I loved it so much, but it was just things, and it was weighing down on the possibilities. And so got rid of that. And then fast forward, after 20 years, my kids both graduated and went off to university, I did it again, and I got rid of so much stuff, and it makes such a difference. And I mean, I have beautiful things, but to your point, I'm not attached to it. And somebody said to me, oh, well, if you wanted to pick up and move, how would you do it? I said, would be very simple now because I didn't make the move like you did going to Colombia, but I moved from the US to Canada.
Mhm.
Right. And, there is something to be said for lightening our load because that energetically it lightens our load inside.
Yes, the level of creativity that I had, the level of mental clarity, the openness to learning new things. When you're constantly engulfed in things that may not even be serving you, but it's just all the stuff we've added, you miss the space to actually learn new things that can create additional opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Most often we miss those things, right?
We do.
Wow. So I know you talk a lot about why it's important to lead yourself before you can lead others. Maybe let's talk about that a little bit because I think that's an area that I don't want to be stereotypical, but women, we forget that, right? And it's so important that we stop comparing or worrying about what other people, but how we lead ourselves, how we show up in the world.
It is the most challenging work because we know everything about us. The good, the not so good, the ugly, we know it all. And the people who know us that they don't know, no one knows everything but us. And sometimes we can be incredibly critical of ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think leading ourselves is important to create the vision that we want for our lives and understanding that we have a choice in that. So it comes down to this level of this level of accountability to yourself that we can't give that to anyone else. We can't make anyone else responsible for all the things in our lives. And if I'm accountable to me and I try to honor my word to myself, then I'm able to do the same for others. Yeah. And Lord knows I haven't always done it. That's why I'm like adamant about it now, because it's a slippery slope. When we stop honoring ourselves and showing up for ourselves, it's impossible to do that consistently for others.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And when you think about that, like, you don't want to wake up someday and have these regrets, right? That I wish I had. Like, you made a bold move. And I think what I love about your Colombia story is you did this and it didn't have to be forever, but it gave you what you needed at that time, right? And it opened 100%. Your mind to so many other possibilities in the world. And because otherwise, if you hadn't have done that, you'd be like, okay, I'm still doing the same thing and I'm not happy with where my life is, but you chose to do something about it.
Yes. Sometimes all we need is a spark of inspiration, a spark of, because a lot of times we'll see something or hear something and we're like, oh, that would be amazing. Oh no, it's not for me. Oh no, I can't do it. Oh, that's only because but no, if we take at the macro level, yes, it may be too much to take the leap and move to another country. But if you take all of these little steps, it was a year before when I had the idea and I saw the vision. It was a year before I actually went to the place and another 3 months before I actually made the move. So if you get a spark of something and something is intriguing, it doesn't mean you have to do it tomorrow, but take the little steps. For me, it was lightening the load and getting rid of things. Okay. Well, for you, it may be organizing things and maybe getting rid of things, but it may be, oh, let me just research what it's like to be in this other role. I've been thinking about sales for a while. Let me talk to a few people in sales. And then it may be a year or 2 or even 3, but at least you've moved toward the thing and haven't dismissed it because you don't want the regret. Like you said, Vicki, it's not a fun place to be.
Yeah, that's great advice. Even the one little step, right? Yes. That's something. And I don't know about you, Angela, but for myself, I'm a huge believer that once you put something out into the universe, you can't dismiss it. It keeps coming up in different ways, right?
It does. It sure does.
Yeah, because all of a sudden, you're getting messages in lots of different ways about Colombia, as an example, or you're getting messages from friends that you haven't talked to in a while who've made a big move like that, or you may even get a message from somebody who wants to make a move but hasn't. They've been paralyzed by the fear, and so you're like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I'm honoring myself.
Yes, and showing yourself grace is really important. You have none of us are perfect. We're going to make mistakes as part of the process, but being able to say, okay, I know I didn't do that well. Let me get back on it and go back after it tomorrow. That's really, and forgiving ourselves for mistakes that we've made is really, really important.
Yeah, I would agree. 100%. 100%. So you've had some experience with change. So why do you think people are reluctant, scared, resistant to change, and even using their voice for change, right? Like being able to express, this is what I need.
Some of it is fear rejection. A lot of it is fear. If I say what I need, and this is still a work in progress for me, because I grew up a really good kid, and I grew up like doing everything right, and you go to school and get the good grades. And that it's usually, I wasn't a rebel early on. It wasn't until I got older, I tried my own path. But I think some of it is being afraid that people are going to reject you. Some of it is fear of the unknown. So I have friends who they have to absolutely know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like they would never work remote. They would never pursue anything entrepreneurial because they have to know where they're going, who they're going to see, what they're going to do. And we're built different. So some of it is so much of it is comfort. Some of it is fear. And then the other part is some people just don't want to do the extra work to create the change that they say they want.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I do see that. And I think some of that is, it can be the paralysis analysis, right? Where overthinking what it's going to require to do this. I mean, from what you've described, it took a little while for it to happen, but you made the decision, I'm doing this, but you were methodical about how you wanted to do it. And so even just like digitizing pictures, that lightened your load. Not you got me thinking now. How am I going to digitize all those pictures I have? And I know there's people who do that. You can hire people to come in and digitize what you have. Actually, I had somebody on the podcast one time who she built her whole company doing that.
Amazing.
And yeah, she has like 400 associates all over the US that they go in and they help you catalog and tell stories, and like pretty amazing, which I may need to do that.
Well, something that came up that I couldn't have anticipated, if this is helpful in your decision making. While I was in Colombia, a friend of mine, father passed away, and they created a video tribute of her dad. Well, because I digitized all the pictures, I had a picture of her dad and I from when he visited me in Germany when we had dinner. He was traveling a lot for business, and she had never seen the picture. No one in their family saw the picture because it was, taken with my little camera that I developed, so, and I was able to send it to them, and they were able to add it to the video
how beautiful.
And remember it. So that's something, a way that we can fuse what we had before with current technology that can be really beneficial.
I love that. Yeah, that is special. I mean, I don't know, that it brings the connection together no matter where you are in the world, right? Yes. Yeah. So if you were going to give advice, if somebody's sitting on the fence and they're saying, I really want to make this change, the fear's speaking loud, what's one step that I can do to get me to that place? What would you want to share with them?
Talk to someone who's been there, who has gone through the process that you want to go through. Don't say anything to anyone who has not done it. Don't ask their opinion. Don't share your idea. I learned when you share your idea, it gives people's license to give their opinion. So don't share the idea with anyone who has not done it, because they don't have real experience to speak to. So it sounds like the person's clear about what they want. They're just afraid to take the leap. I would say talk to someone and write down everything that they say, and then take one little step.
Nice.
What you've learned.
Nice. Good advice. And so what are the risks when we don't listen to that voice? What are the risks when we don't do what our heart, what our soul is screaming for?
The risks are this cloud of doubt that you can actually do things that you want. The risks are immense amount of regret that you haven't done it. And then you lack confidence because you haven't done the work necessary to get to the thing that you know you really, really want. Those it's risky. It's definitely risky.
Yeah, love that. So Angela, I am looking at our time here. Anything else you would like to share with our audience? Somebody who might not be a big move to Colombia, but if they're looking at making a change, or I love what you just shared about don't share it with somebody who hasn't done it, because they'll have lots of opinions but no experience with it. But is there anything else that you would want to share with folks?
You don't have to have it all figured out. If you're looking to make change, you don't have to know everything in this moment, but keep a clear vision of what you want. So like I said, I didn't know that it was Colombia. I knew there would be mountains and palm trees and it would be very walkable. Like I could see it and feel it, but I didn't know. So sometimes we want to know how it's all going to work out. But oftentimes when you take steps toward it, it works out in ways you could have never, ever imagined. You can't plan it all.
Love that.
Life is very unpredictable. So I would say get clear about your vision and take just little steps. Continue to take little steps toward it.
Love that. Love that. And that's so true. And I love how you had the visual of this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. This is what it smells like. So all of it comes to life for you. And I think that's a big part of it, right? Because you immerse yourself. And it didn't really matter where it was in the world because you had the vision. It could have been anywhere.
I'm so glad it could have been a lot of different places.
Yeah.
But when I was there, I knew I had this knowingness I don't know what that's called. I'm sure there's
you just said it, knowingness. You know, with a capital N, this is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
Capital N, capital K. Vicki, hello. That's my spelling today.
Capital K-N-O-W.
Yeah, there you go.
All of it is caps.
Wow. Awesome. Well, it is such a pleasure to meet you, to have you on the show. Where can people find you? If they have questions or comments or want to reach out and learn a little bit more, like where do they go to find you?
You can find me at AngelaRLewis.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Angela R. Lewis. You can find me on Instagram, the Angela R. Lewis, or email me info@AngelaRLewis.com.
Nice. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your journey. Very inspiring. I mean, you've had such a life and, so much travel and experiences. So we're grateful that you decided to come on today and share that with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Vicki. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Pleasure. Well, and audience, as we talked about, leave us a review. Let us know how we did today. If you have somebody who's sitting on the fence of making a big life change or a big decision, share this episode with them. Let them know, one step at a time. It's all it takes. And please do visit us at womenandleadershipempowered.com. Take our free leadership quiz. It'll give you insight as to how you're showing up as a leader. And that is valuable information to know how you show up. So thank you, everyone. And Angela, thank you again for being here with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for WIL Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.willempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.